It's that time of the day. Yes, it really is. It's time for Talking Pints, and I'm joined by Nigel Dodds, or of course Lord Dodds, as we now have to call you, now that you're such a part of the establishment.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't necessarily describe myself as part of the establishment. When you're from Northern Ireland, a democratic unionist, some people in the Lords look at you as if, what are we going to get here? What are we going to get here? But yeah. I've been around Westminster a long time now, so I know how it works.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you qualify as a barrister, and you perhaps could have had, a stellar career in the law and not had any aggro in your life, and made money, but it's been really, you've given pretty much the whole of your adult life in service to what was the Tiddler political party in Northern Ireland. It was the Democratic Unionist Party. The Ulster Unionists were absolutely there as the dominant force in unionism, and here was the little DUP, and you served for years as the General Secretary, for many more years as the Deputy Leader, and for most of that time under this very dominant figure of Ian Paisley. And for those watching and listening who don't remember Ian Paisley, we're going to show you a clip from him in the mid-1980s, so watch and listen to this right now.
Tells us that republic must have some say in our province. We say never, 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 never.
Well, I don't quite know what to say. I think I had some politically oratorical skills at times, but the power, the passion. Now, I got to know him a bit in the European Parliament. You knew him incredibly well, and you also knew that basically most people on the mainland, their knowledge of Ian Paisley was through the 9 o'clock news and how the BBC wished to portray him, and kind of, he was seen to be this kind of monster figure with views on the Pope that sort of many thought took us back to medieval times. What was he like as a human being?
Well, as you say, that clip in particular, which was the 1985 rally against the Anglo-Irish Agreement, where all the Northern Ireland MPs resigned their seats en masse in order to get a democratic mandate against the imposition of this agreement, which unionists saw as imposing Dublin involvement in Northern Ireland's affair, the internal affairs of the United Kingdom. So there's some issues that don't go away. They're the same. We're still dealing with some of those issues today. I remember that particular day, actually, because Jim Molyneux, who was the leader of the then Ulster Unionist Party, and Ian were ready to go out with the other MPs, and there were some people actually on the stage, the massive platform. There were about 200,000 people waiting for these politicians to come out, and there were people actually up on the platform, and I was sent out as a humble councillor indeed to get them off the platform. You can imagine what that was like, sort of, the eyes of Northern Ireland on you. But no, it was Ian was an incredibly powerful orator. He was a great preacher of the gospel. So he knew how to speak to an audience, to a crowd, at a very, to a massive audience, but also almost as if he was speaking to you one-to-one. And on a private basis, he was remarkably well liked in the corridors of Westminster and in the European Parliament. People who disagreed with him vehemently politically got on with him famously.
I found him charming.
Yeah.
He almost Edwardian manners.
Yes.
He'd hold doors open and say hello to everybody.
And he never held a grudge. He could argue, really forthrightly with, political opponents, but afterwards he would be charming, as you say, and generous and helpful to people. He had a great reputation as the North Antrim MP, as someone to whom, many Roman Catholic constituents, nationalists who wouldn't support him in a million years for his unionism, but supported him because of the way he dealt with them and his pastoral role. He was a complex character, but he was a great
and the little DUP, which you attach yourself to. Well, it's still the little DUP. I know all about this. UKIP was tiny too, so I know all about this.
We built it up, though, into something quite big in Northern Ireland.
Boy, you became the biggest party. He became the First Minister. Was this a reaction to what was seen in Northern Ireland as perhaps London turning its back on the province?
Yeah, I think there was a feeling that the Ulster Unionist Party had become too sort of part of the establishment, is what we were talking about earlier. We need to be careful. We need to learn the lessons of history. But and I think the DUP represented an authentic voice of unionism, and it was also very good on the ground at working and helping people. Ian's example in North Antrim paved the way for a lot of others, and they followed that example. So we did grow from a point where we were really the really small partner in unionism to being the dominant, but to the extent now that, you know, we have 8 MPs at Westminster and the Ulster Unionists don't have any at all. So there's been a massive sea change.
There has, but there's been a sea change on the other side of the divide as well.
Absolutely. Where, John Hume, who was
a very, very big figure again.
Massive figure, and him and Ian Paisley dominated the European elections in Northern Ireland. There were only 3 MEPs. They were the 2 main people. And now, of course, the SDLP don't even have a seat.
They used to make me laugh because when I was first there, John Hume and Ian Paisley, and John Hume liked the members' bar.
Yes.
If you know what I mean, in Strasbourg, and I too quite like the members' bar in Strasbourg, and I found him, you know, very expansive, very interesting man.
Yes.
Very interesting man.
Yes.
And I was very struck. I thought a profoundly decent man as well. And then sometimes Ian Paisley would come in. And I mean, it must have looked to him like the last days of Sodom and Gomorrah, you know, champagne corks popping, and he would sit in the middle of the members' bar. You perhaps remember this of your visits and your time there. Sit in the members' bar reading the Good News Bible. I thought the sort of cross between the two.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one thing about Ian. I mean, he lived his Christianity, and it was a real thing. I mean, he would have read the Bible. I mean, I remember one time the flight out to Strasbourg, all the British MEPs and the Irish MEPs would all go together on this charter flight. It was called the by-election special, morbidly enough. And we'd all fly out, and we came through this really bad turbulence on the way into Strasbourg, and some of the MEPs were, you know, it's terrible, terrible. Ian, pray for us. And Ian was saying, reading the Bible, you know, saying, don't worry, your time hasn't come yet. And, you know, he was just, he really lived it out, you know. But, I mean, he enjoyed Europe and the European Parliament, although he was a Brexiteer before it was popular. He was always very consistent that he believed the United Kingdom shouldn't be in the European Union or the European Community then. But he did a very effective job, along with John Hume, for the people of Northern Ireland.
I agree with that.
And he enjoyed that international stage.
But John Hume's gone.
Yep.
And the SDLP has gone the same way as the Ulster Unionist Party, and it's now Sinn Féin on the march.
Yes.
But not just in Northern Ireland, but in the Republic as well.
That's right.
I mean, what does this mean? When you know, I know that you fought for your political life, and it's your great passion for Northern Ireland to be a full part of the United Kingdom, which is why ultimately the Brexit deal is so offensive to you. But if you look 10, 20, 30 years down the road, Nigel, in your heart, do you think Northern Ireland stays part of the UK?
I do, because if you look back through history, people have been saying from the 1920s, the 1930s, that there would come a time in a few decades where Unionists would be outvoted and that there would be a united Ireland. And it has never happened, because there are a large number of people who may not be Protestant by birth, and there's increasingly a lot of people in Northern Ireland who don't describe themselves as belonging to any church at all, but who see the merits.
That's a big change,
It is a big change, but they see the merits. There's a substantial number. If it came to a referendum, they may not vote for a unionist party, but if it came to a referendum, they would vote for the union, because being part of the 5th or 6th biggest economy, when they look at the Irish Republic, yes, it's done well in recent years, but they have a lot of problems.
A National Health Service, which of course the Republic doesn't have. Where
you pay for your appointments, you pay for your eye tests, you pay for this, that and other, where the housing situation is really, really challenging, where, interestingly enough, Sinn Féin keep telling us in the north, you need to join with the Irish Republic, and then down south, whether they be an opposition party, they're laying into the government, saying it's all terrible down here. You know, I mean, there's no logic to it. I say the best advertisement for staying out of United Ireland is listen to Sinn Féin's tirades in the Doyle against the current government.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't invent some of this stuff, but then parties are good at that. But that's what's happened. But Northern Ireland itself, you know, and I think the truth of it is the British establishment has kind of said, we don't want to know. You know, John Major once famously said, we have no selfish interest in Northern Ireland. We have no selfish interest in part of our own country. And when it comes to news items, etc., Northern Ireland has been tucked into this sort of other status. But so most English people have never even been to Northern Ireland.
Yes.
But those of us that are old enough have. I mean, you grew up all through the Troubles, which were pretty horrific, weren't they?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I remember I was brought in a beautiful part of the world down in County Fermanagh, the lakes and all of Fermanagh in my early years. But, I mean, living in Belfast through as a student and so on through the Troubles was difficult. But Belfast now is an incredible place to come and visit.
British
and Northern Ireland, you know what it is. And, you know, we have had some spectacular events there. Beautiful countryside, fantastic restaurants. The whole nightlife scene has really taken off. And, you know, Northern Ireland really is a great place to come to visit, but also a great place to live. I mean, the standard of living is good. Our schools are first rate. Our education system is excellent. And so, you know, we have a lot to be proud of. I mean, Northern Ireland...
Are you working for the Northern Irish Tourist Board?
No, which I was sometimes, but no, not sadly.
So you're saying to people, actually, it's a very safe place to come. It's got a lot going for it. Absolutely. I mean, you know, anyone who comes... And the hospitality of the people. The people in Northern Ireland are a generous people. People used to joke, you know, they're just cruel and nasty to each other, you know, but outsiders are very... But, I mean, that's changed as well. And, of course... that's what people remark upon. Even during the darkest days of the Trouble, people would come to Northern and say, you know, people in Northern Ireland are friendly. They're outgoing. They say hello to you in the street. If they meet you once, they'll say hello again. And they make the most enormous breakfasts.
Yes, there's certainly no doubt about
the Ulster fry.
The Ulster fry is infamous everywhere you go. And the amount of soda bread and tatty farls and all that stuff. Yeah,
so was it all worth it? I mean, you know, some massive concessions were made at the time of the Belfast Agreement. Massive concessions were made. And you talk about Belfast today, and I've been in the last couple of years and seen it, and it looks like a modern British city to me in operation. Those sacrifices and compromises were worth it.
Yeah, well, look, some of them at the time we opposed, and we did get some stuff rectified.
I remember.
Some of it is now past the board. But I think also we've got to remember that Northern Ireland is still part of the United Kingdom. We have this protocol issue to sort out. It's a real danger to Northern Ireland's future if we don't get it sorted, because Brexit then isn't really done as far as the United Kingdom's concerned. But yesterday in the House of Commons we had the second reading of the bill to hopefully put some of that right. And if we can get that sorted out, then I think we can look forward to a very good future within the United Kingdom. And I have no doubt that that will be the case for decades
biggest threat
to come.
Biggest threat to unionism is the split within unionism.
Yes.
You know, there's a TUV. There were three parties, three identifiable unionist parties.
Well, you were talking earlier about people in Britain, you know, and they would look at the three unionist parties in Northern Ireland and say, what on earth is this about? There's hardly any difference.
I think we say they're all mad over
that.
but literally, shooting yourselves in the feet.
And Sinn Féin are only the biggest party by 3 seats because of those divisions within unionism. And so, look, our appeal has been, as we are the biggest party now, and we have a responsibility to reach out to others. And Jeffrey Donaldson, our leader, has put that invitation out that there needs to be better cooperation, working together. I would love to see the day that there was one unionist party, that there was one movement which brought everybody together of all wings and sections of unionism.
You need it. And a final thought. What's it like being a Lord?
Well, it's very different from being an MP. You have a great platform in House of Lords. I'm very privileged to have that platform, but you don't have a constituency. And I had the honour...
So no one to answer to.
No one to answer to, except, well, the party rings you occasionally, and some people do hold you to account who remain in the background in terms of the party. But in terms of the constituency, I love the constituency work. I had a very challenging constituency in North Belfast, an inner city constituency with a lot of problems and challenges. But not having that amount of time to spend on those issues means you have a lot more time to do the policy stuff, the networking, to promote the union in a whole lot of ways that I couldn't have time to do previously. And I'm enjoying that immensely. Well,
after all these years, you're not going to stop, are you? Nigel Dodds, thank you for joining me on Talking Pints.
Cheers.
Very good indeed.
Thank you.